Hey, welcome back to Being Integrated. I'm Jude, and this is 4 tips to improve your meditation practice. I'm going to start by saying that the fourth one is by far the most powerful and life-changing tip for me. It really changed my practice. It really deepened everything. So definitely stick around to the end. But also the third one might sound kind of weird and controversial, but I'll do my best to explain why I think it's helpful and important, not necessary, but it could be really valuable to add to your practice. So the first step is to set an intention before you practice. Get really clear on your intention. So when you sit down to meditate, say, okay, for the next 10 minutes or 20 minutes, however long you have set for yourself, that you're going to do your best to stay focused. Your mind's going to want to come in, you're going to want to think, and you can just put that aside for now, that there's going to be plenty of time to think later, but for now you're going to do your best to stay focused on your practice, whatever the intention of your practice is. So it's really getting clear with what the intention of your practice is, really knowing what the practice is. I just did a video called Am I Doing It Right? Like, am I meditating right? And so if you're not really clear on what your practice is and if you're doing it right, maybe check that one out so you can get more confident in your practice. And then deciding, okay, I'm going to do my best, and also being forgiving with yourself, knowing that you're not going to do it perfect. So just saying, I'm going to do my best, and whatever that is okay. So that's the first step, is setting your intention before you start practicing. Sometimes you might come in saying, oh, I know my intention, but really making it clear every time you sit down that this is what my intention is with the practice can actually help a lot. It can help to put your mind at ease and let your mind know, okay, if it slows down or calms down, that's okay. The thoughts are going to be able to come back later. Often our thoughts jump in because they feel so important. They feel like, oh, if I don't engage with these thoughts, I'm going to forget. It's something that I need to know or need to think about or need to remember. So just telling yourself that you're going to be practicing for this amount of time and you'll address the thoughts later can be really reassuring for our mind and can help us get a little more concentrated and into the practice. So the second tip is opening your heart to your experience. And this is really another way of talking about equanimity, which is something I talk about a lot on the channel. You can check out my videos on equanimity. But another way of saying this is to open your heart to your experience. So whether you're doing a focus-based practice, like focusing on your breath, or a more open awareness style of Vipassana, like focusing on different aspects of your experience, whatever you're focusing on, open your heart to that experience. Often we get so fixated on keeping our attention on the thing that we're not actually opening our heart or our body or our awareness or our being to the experience. So we really don't want to be closed down. We don't want to be tight or constricted. We want to be fully open to whatever's arising. And so meet each moment, meet each breath or each sensory experience with this open-hearted awareness. You can think of it as that same feeling of meeting someone you love, someone you care a lot about. When you see them, when you think of them, that open-hearted feeling you get, meet each sensation with that same openness. Remember, this is a practice. We're going to get caught up, we're going to get tightened and constricted around our experience, we're going to forget, and that's okay. So it's also meeting our own larger sense of practice, our own follies and imperfections with that same open-heartedness. Whenever we notice our mind running away and we bring it back, meet that experience with open-heartedness and goodness and care. This is a super important one, and it's one that we often forget about and get lost in the actual pragmatic aspect of the practice. But just being in this open-hearted space and awareness, that is one of the biggest, most important pieces of practice. Okay, so the third one, which is kind of a weird one, is called dedication of merit, or at least that's what it's called in like a traditional sense. So in Tibetan Buddhism, which is the original tradition I studied in and also the tradition that my parents studied in, there's always, after the end of our meditation practice or whatever we're doing, we dedicate the merit. And the idea of merit is kind of tied to karma. It's that we gain some good merit, like it's a good deed to practice meditation. That so much of our actions are in delusion and suffering and cause suffering for others, even if we're not aware of it. And so the practice of meditation is meant to combat this. It's actually like a good deed, like we're doing something good for ourselves and for the world. So meditation practice is seen as this virtue that accumulates merit, accumulates like good karma or good deeds, and it helps us. We wouldn't be doing it if it didn't help us and improve our well-being in some way. So the dedication of merit is saying, okay, in all this goodness that I've achieved or accumulated through my practice, I'm not going to hold on to this. I'm going to give it away and give it to all sentient beings, so just like basically everyone. And this kind of sounds weird if you're not familiar with the concept. When I first started practicing, I was like, you know what, I'm working really hard. I was practicing a lot, and I was like, I don't really want to give it away, then it's all for nothing. But the reason why this is so emphasized in Tibetan Buddhism is that giving it away is really what the practice is all about. It's really what Buddhism is all about. It's challenging this egoic, self-serving part of ourselves. Practice is really about letting go of the self, letting go of us and who we think we are, and that we're so important, or that we need this or that we need to feel good all the time. Practice is very much about letting go of these parts of ourselves. And there's this trap in practice. There's this trap that when we start doing a lot of meditation or spiritual practice, we start to feel better about ourselves, which isn't bad. But the risk is that we might use it to inflate our ego, to inflate our sense of self, thinking, oh, I meditate, I do these practices, I'm a better person, I'm better than these other people who don't do meditation. So the dedication of merit is really to combat this part of ourselves that wants to cling to the practice, that wants to cling to these ideas that we're so important or that we're better than others. And it's really humbling ourselves. It's saying, okay, I'm going to do all this, but I'm not even going to do it for myself. I'm going to do it for others. And this is really in the core essence of what Buddhism is all about. It is kind of about transcending the ego or the small sense of self and realizing this larger sense of beingness, that we are really interconnected with everything. So when you finish your practice, you can say, okay, any goodness or merit or whatever word you want to use, anything you've accumulated through this, it's really for the benefit of all. You just want to give it out. It's not holding on to it. It's just allowing everything to just be in the flow. It's just wishing others to be well, not doing things for ourselves. And so the trick to this is if you genuinely mean it, if you really wish for others to be well better than yourself, it actually improves the practice. The challenge is that we have to mean it. We have to really not be doing it, giving it out so we can get more back, but really giving it out because we see the beauty and the truth of not holding on to our own accomplishments, but by doing things for somebody else, it actually helps everyone. Okay, so the fourth tip for deepening your practice, and this again was the huge one for me, which is practicing mindfulness in everyday life, which is taking the practice of awareness off of the cushion and starting to integrate it into my day-to-day. And the more I did this, the more it really changed everything. I started with doing a few check-ins in the day of just noticing how I'm feeling, what's happening in my mind, what's happening in my body, how I'm relating to my experience. And now it happens, maybe 100, 200 times a day. I have these moments of insight, of just seeing my experience for what it is. And this is especially relevant when we get activated, when we get reactive or triggered. If some discomfort arises in my body, if something happens like, I get some bad news or somebody's mean to me or whatever it is, these things that would normally bring us into either anger or sadness or anxiety, suddenly I have this awareness and I can notice the feeling come up in my body, I can notice the sensations, and I can just allow them to be there. I cannot make it a problem anymore. So I used to have, you could say, a bit of an anxiety issue. I would get really nervous and I'd get anxiety and I'd kind of close up around social groups. I'd close up around certain experiences. If I have a group to lead or something, or I'm teaching something, then I start feeling some anxiety before and even during, but I don't make it a problem. It's just, oh, there's the anxiety coming up. That's there. That's fine. I know I can still do this. I know I can still perform well even though the anxiety is there. So it's not crippling anymore. It doesn't have a negative impact on me. And this is all through the practice of mindfulness. This is through the practice of being aware and being okay, practicing equanimity with the feelings, and also bringing more clarity into the sensations, noticing where they're happening in the body, what they feel like. When you do this, they become less scary, they become less overwhelming, and suddenly everything just becomes a bit easier and smoother in life. So I have a lot of practices. Much of my channel is dedicated to teaching people how to practice mindfulness in everyday life. So I have like this kind of course called Pragmatic Mindfulness Series. That's just 4 videos, and it really gives you the foundational theories and practices for doing this. So if this interests you, check that out. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you appreciated the video, please like, subscribe, comment, do all those things. They're super appreciated, and stay tuned for more.